Okay, very good. So one of the things that some people have spotted and others are just catching up on are some Supreme Court rulings that back up Trump. And they back him up in the ability to remove certain people, especially commissioners of what are called independent agencies. Now, you'll recall that last year there was a finding with the Chevron case. We've referred to that and reported on that in the past. And that case affirmed that agencies do not have the ability to make law. So, in other words, up to now, for example, the EPA and CDC and others would issue edicts and they'd treat them and actually kind of describe them as if they were new laws that they were putting in place. And unfortunately, people were fooled in some cases into treating them as law. They are not. And that's what the Supreme Court found last year in the Chevron case. Now comes the opportunity for Trump to make change in some of the agencies, especially by removing some of the commissioners. And the reason is, I believe that we're focusing on the commissioners early, is because in order to make change in these agencies, you have to make sure that they're not trying to undo your change. How do you do that? Well, you focus on the leadership. And so the Supreme Court earlier in the year found that Trump could fire certain commissioners, and they did it again. They reaffirmed that just in the last couple of weeks. Here's an earlier article from NBC News that talks about the Supreme Court allowing Trump to fire members of the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And they had brought suit to try to keep their jobs, and others had brought suit on their behalf. So why was this even in place? Well, it actually goes back a lot further than most people understand. This was set up back in 1935 in a case known as Humphrey's Executor versus the United States. And the result of that case created a shield, if you will, around unelected bureaucrats inside agencies, especially independent agencies. And it effectively made them immune to being fired. Now, many people have kind of anecdotally said, oh, well, gosh, we can't make any changes with federal employees. They can't be fired. I think that in many cases, this is what they were referring to, but they didn't really know the facts. This was based on a case that goes all the way back to 1935. What's this latest decision? Well, the latest decision confirms that Trump has full constitutional authority to remove such bureaucrats. Why is that important now? Well, keep in mind what we saw in this last week. Remember that interesting video with Russell Voigt and the fact that he's the Reaper. Do you remember this? We played it, I believe, in our last show and maybe the show before that. And further in that video, it says he is going to tie your hands, and he's holding up a bag of money. What does that mean? Well, one of the ways that this could be interpreted is he's going to take away the power of these bureaucrats to allocate our money in ways that are not in keeping with the best interest of America and the best interest of Americans. So in order to do that, apparently one of the things that they believe they need to focus on are these independent agencies, and perhaps many of them. You may recall, too, that in months past, we've reported that there are, in fact, a lot more agencies than people understand. There's something like 400 and more underneath the federal umbrella, many, many more than most people understand. How many of these are affected? Quite a number of them, we think. And Mr. Vogt has been busily at work in the last few days and has already started undoing some of these. Now we have confirmation that the actual leadership of these can be undone as well. Isn't it interesting that General Flynn posted in on this? The United States Supreme Court reminded the nation that executive power belongs to the president alone. And then another poster posted this that General Flynn reposted. And it says, the great reclamation has begun. The Supreme Court just restored Trump's constitutional power to remove commissioners from federal agencies for the first time in 90 years. 90 years. Remember 1935.
It's a
The
big
president
deal.
can clean house. The walls of bureaucratic tyranny are cracking. Big thing? I think it is. I
Yeah.
think many other people will find that it is.
Well, that's the foundation of the whole deep state, essentially.
It is a very, very important part of it. It isn't maybe everything, but it's a very important part. There's another term that you may hear in the middle of this as well, and you can hear it referred to as the SES or Senior Executive Service. And these two are terms used to refer to, again, unelected bureaucrats hidden across the government, if you will. They would say they're not hidden, but that are not elected and are, again, have been up to this point, I believe in many cases, immune from firing. Why were they put in place? Well, if you remember, I want to say it was Karl Rove and maybe, oh gosh, the Secretary of State going back to Bush that really worked on putting these people in place going back into the early 2000s and maybe before. And the intention, at least the stated intention, was to make sure that we had continuity of thought and understanding and knowledge across multiple administrations. But what have we perhaps gotten? We've gotten continuity of strategy, maybe in working against some of the administrations, perhaps even against Trump. So this entire circumstance is going to be very interesting to watch, we believe. And we recommend people keep their eye on the additional changes that we believe will come from Russ Vought's involvement and other moves that the president makes as we go forward.
Big deal. You know, that you may be getting to this. Are you going to talk about Scavino and Sergio Gore?
Not yet, not in this session. So if you'd like
Let
to
me
speak
just bring
to that,
that
please
up
do.
because, you know, I've had Ivan Raiklin on many times in the recent past, and one of the targets he's had is Sergio Gore in charge of the personnel in the administration, saying, and you know, I don't know Sergio, but Ivan says he's one of the guys putting in bad people around Trump. Interestingly enough, he was removed last night, and Dan Scavino came into that position. So
Isn't that interesting?
I find that interesting.
Keep in mind, Dan Scavino has enjoyed a relationship with Trump that goes back 40 or more years in multiple different settings. And I have spoken of Dan Scavino, Mr. Scavino, in the past as what I believe is one of Trump's most trusted confidants. So